To me, that's what forgiveness is. That was like the spirit of bell hooks that just spoke through me. Hi, I'm Ziona Shepherd, and I'm here to rant about why Black moms hate their daughters. Don't I look like Cora in this t-shirt? OMG. I'm the Avatar.
You gotta deal with it!
The reason I wanted to talk about this topic in the first place is because it's a reoccurring theme, I feel like, in the Black community. So many Black girls I know have this tenuous relationship with their mom. Girl, you already know, generational trauma. But we'll get into that. My personal relationship with my mom is personally, I think, a lot better now. But girl, I used to be like you. No, I'm just kidding. The reason I wanted to make this video is because for a long time, I struggled to have a proper and understanding relationship with my mom. There was always this sense of entitlement and understanding. There was a lack of intimacy in our relationship. And it was on her end, I house you, I feed you, I do these things for you, so why are you not grateful? And on my hand, there was just a lack of compassion. Like as a kid, when I was watching movies or I would hear my friends talk about their relationships with their mom, I would always desire that physical closeness and being able to experience vulnerability with my mom. And a lot of times when I get emotional, she isn't really receptive to that. I mean, that's just how she processes things. And for a while, I took it as that meaning that she doesn't love me in that way. I just had to learn how to accept her as she was and try to find what she believes is love. When I think of love, I think of two people with a willingness to change for each other, to better for each other. And, you know, that isn't something that's common, I guess, in parental love. It's more so, I provide for you. If you have emotions or like sadness or anger towards me, despite the fact that I provide for you, I have a roof over your head, then you're an ungrateful child. And I think this narrative can be harmful, especially like as a child, because you feel like you can't really speak up about your emotions, or your emotions won't be validated, and the fact that you have them are a bad thing. And I think that kind of mentality stuck with me from childhood into adulthood, and it took a lot of work to figure out where it came from, one, and to figure out how to undo it. I'm still figuring out how to undo it. There are times I catch myself scared to mention how I feel in my friendships, or I used to be a lot more scared. It's a lot better now, but like, say for example, I had a problem with a friend and I was feeling this way. I would kind of keep that to myself, and it would build up like this sort of resentment, I guess I would call it, because I wasn't speaking about what I was upset about in the first place. It was like a ticking time bomb. I really had to learn how to prioritize communication in my friendships, because that wasn't something that I knew from childhood. That wasn't something I was taught. That was something I had to learn through therapy and just watching other people's friendships. I'll still admit, like, it's like, oh, if I say this thing, are they gonna completely like snap on me, like bomb on me? Like, is our friendship in trouble? Having friends who validate your feelings and who apologize and who are willing to listen without getting angry and immediately like threatening that relationship, it's such a healthy experience. I can't even explain it. And like, growing up as a child, it was just so nerve-wracking for me to even do that in the first place. I think a big part of that came from learning what love actually is and learning my love languages. Love languages weren't even something I necessarily learned in relationships. It happened with my friendships, you know. What do I really value? Quality time. Maybe I'm not a physical touch person, but I like little notes my friends leave me, or when they write in my birthday card, it makes me feel really appreciated, or when they remember a song that I like, or something like that. It's like learning yourself in that way makes a safer relationship. And I feel like sometimes, because of the power dynamic that parents have with their children, that kind of safety and intimacy and willingness to learn just isn't there. And when I talk about intimacy, I guess the best way I could describe it is the way my uncle taught it to me. He calls intimacy intimacy. You have a person that's really looking to learn who you are beyond the surface level. Say, for example, you blow up, you have a bad day. Someone you share intimacy would not necessarily be so reactive as to you blowing up as they would to why are you blowing up? What caused this? What are you experiencing to make you feel this way? And there's a different level of patience and kindness that I really value in my relationships, because I seek that intimacy and I want to be able to receive and give it back. Learning how to do that with my mom, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of learning how to not take her behaviors personal, validating my feelings even if they weren't validated by her. Separating my sense of self-worth from what she knew me to be. Parents have this funny thing where they think they know you when, yeah, you grew up with me all your life, but if you never learned who I am past, the parental relationship, then you can't know me in that way. And I think it's such a shame, especially in Black communities, to have your mom be sort of your biggest bully and not your biggest cheerleader. And I'm not saying that's my experience personally. I see these Black girls growing up and having to relearn and having to not close themselves off in that way. It's rough, y'all. It's rough. I ain't gonna cap. And it can be hard to even recognize these patterns within yourself. I know that therapy isn't something that's necessarily paraded in the Black community. It definitely wasn't in my family. Mental health was just my family had all these questions. And it's funny because we knew some people, the way that their behaviors were, there were so many in my family that would be quick to call each other crazy or say something's wrong with them, this or that. But when it comes to therapy, that's also weaponized. Oh, you're crazy if you go to therapy. You're crazy if you continue the behaviors that you need therapy for. Which one is it? It can't be both. No, and I'm so tired.
Our parents don't know about that. Our grandparents don't know about that. We learned to hold all that shit in.
My relationship with my mom really wasn't able to get better until I had a deeper understanding of why they formed in the first place. And it didn't excuse all the hurt and the pain that was previously in a relationship, but it did allow me a bigger lens and to forgive and to not hold all that animosity towards her. Obviously, if you're experiencing emotional and physical abuse and you feel like your safety is not a priority in a relationship, I'm not gonna tell you oh, it's your job to fix this relationship, because that would just be full of shit. Literally, prioritize your safety first. And once you feel like you're at a level where you would like to form a relationship with your mom, you would like to form an intimacy or a closeness with them, then I would say set your boundaries and get some help doing so. I read this webtoon, I know this is a little sidetracked, but it was called To My Mom or something. And basically in the webtoon, the girl's mom had died. She found her mom's journal, and all of her mom's behaviors and the things that she would say that would pop into her mind, all of those things would stick with her. Oh, it's making me cry. It was literally such a sad webtoon, but I loved it so much. When I think of my relationship with my mom, I don't want to get hurt, but I also don't want to grow up hating her or hating and never being able to forgive her and viewing her as the villain all the time. I think there definitely was a moment in time where like I just felt like every little thing that she said to me, like every little aside, it would rub me the wrong way, and I just felt like because I didn't have that forgiveness, I don't know, I'm not gonna blame myself because I know relationships take two people, but I didn't have that safety in our relationship. I couldn't come to her with things. I remember we had this conversation, it was literally this year, and she told me about her relationship with my grandma, and that made it a lot easier for me to process. It was like, oh, I was like, I had a lot of empathy for her in that moment. It was like my inner child was talking to her inner child. I'm really tearing up. This is painful. Once I had that conversation with her about the way that she was raised and the way her feelings were never validated, it wasn't like a snap overnight process. It was more like an understanding of her inability to love the way I see love as. And it wasn't a rejection of her, but more so a willingness to learn why she acted the way she did. Obviously, some things for me that she considers love, I didn't look at that way, but when I had a more perspective where this was coming from, of wanting to come from a place of help, it was a little bit easier to separate my sense of self-worth from her, the way she was treating me. For so long, I had thought myself to be unlovable. That came from a place of not having my needs and feelings validated as a child. But as I've learned in therapy, many years of therapy, someone else's behavior towards you is not a reflection of your self-worth or of your lovability. And even if that person is your mother, the person maybe you're supposed to be your closest relationship, it's still not a reflection of who you are. And I feel like once I was able to discover an unconditional love and a faith, that was a lot easier to process. I always talk about my friends, but they really have a big part of my journey because they're a big part of the people who taught me unconditional love in my life. And they're a big reason why I was able to step outside of that previous pain and hurt and pursue a relationship with my mom that was loving, and not to hold any animosity or resentment against her, because at the end of the day, even if I am hurt by this relationship, there are people in my life that bring so much light that I can't lose. It doesn't have as big of an effect on me as if there was nobody. What I really don't understand is even when Black moms can experience this cycle of generational hurt and trauma, they continue to perpetuate it in their relationships with their daughter, subconsciously or consciously. Like, I don't understand why. I don't know. Whoa. If you're a Black girl and you've ever been called over dramatic or oversensitive or been told you have a victim mindset, throw that shit out the window. Throw it out. Your feelings deserve to be validated. You are not crazy for seeking intimacy and understanding in your relationships. And that's something, like, emotions are not a weakness. Being able to see past emotions and to have this understanding with a person that is vulnerable is something I crave and I value in my relationships. And it's something I never got from my parents, but that's okay. That's okay. I wish, like, as children, we weren't categorized as being fast or being bad or being this or that or labeled in that way. And instead we're investigated or had parents that were curious enough to find out why these behaviors kept resurfacing instead of being so aggravated, you know?
Sweetie, what is going on? What's happening?
The biggest reason I would stress forgiveness, especially if you have a relationship with your mom that is tenuous, and Don't get me wrong, this is a lot easier when you don't live under the same roof and you don't have exposure to each other every day. So if that forgiveness doesn't come till later in life, do not beat yourself up over that. But the reason I would stress forgiveness is because holding on to that aggression and to that hate, you're suffering inside. When you're suffering in that way and you're thinking thoughts like, I never want to become like my mother, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to become like them and perpetuate the cycle again. Or two, you're going to find forgiveness. You're going to have to realize there are some parts of your mom that you want to be like, and there are some parts of your mom that you don't want to be like. But you're never going to be able to sift through the negative and the positive if you have that lens of hate. Obviously, give or take, because everybody's relationship's a little bit different, but obviously if there's this reason that a lot of people are experiencing this, then maybe that's worth mentioning and investigating. But I wanted to emphasize having grace and having forgiveness and having empathy, even if those weren't things that we were taught. When I say forgiveness, I'm not saying you have to do it right now. I'm just saying when there gets to a point where one day your mom needs you, you, for your sake, shouldn't be hanging on to the hurt you experienced. There's obviously some, this is a gray area, but to me, that's what forgiveness is. Even if you can't do it exactly today, there should be some point in your life where you come to realize, your mom was your age too, and she has experienced hurt in ways that maybe you don't know of, and maybe it's from her parent. But at some point, if you're so tired of perpetuating the same cycle, then you have to be the one that stops it, and you have to be the one that can sift through the negative behaviors and look for the light in another person. And trust, that is tough. That is hard. If you can't do it today, that's okay. Take your time with it. Don't kick your moms out of your life. There's a little asterisk above that, because I don't know everyone's personal experience, but for the most part, the reason why Black moms hate their daughters is because their version of love is actually closer to a version of hate that they have learned through generational trauma. Bell Hooks, are you in here? That wasn't even me. That was the spirit of Bell Hooks that just spoke through me. But anyway, thank you for watching this video. It was a little bit all over the place, but I hope that the message that I was trying to convey came through. And if you have opinions, if you want to talk about your personal relationships, or maybe if you agreed or didn't agree with something I say, I would love to discuss in the comments. I love hearing your guys' thoughts. Even when some of their thoughts are like, this girl is stupid and naive, and I'm like, but why did they think that though? So this is a safe space. I'm never gonna be block, unless you say something that's not appropriate. Then you might get blocked. Anyway, point is not the point. Okay, if you enjoyed watching this video, thank you so much for taking the time to come to my channel, subscribe, talk to me on Instagram, yeah. Bye!